And then also 2019, I'm hoping to do more, I guess, public speaking events and things like that because I've had a lot of fun with those. I think there's something, it just has a different energy than, speaking to a camera by yourself and then posting it later. And what's great about those is that I can still film them for people who can't be there.
Right.
Yeah, hoping to do more of that as well. But no, this has been a really great year, and I think one of the weirdest things for me has been like I was on Fox 3 times this year, which is like really weird for me to kind of get my head around. But it's also been a year where I've started doing like in-person events. It was Kilroy earlier this year. We had Politicon, MythCon, which was a lot of fun. I also had a talk at ASU with the College Republicans United. So it's been a lot of things, and like you said, like Uncensored started this year. I can't believe. Well, on part of me is like, it feels like it's been forever, but also not that long. I don't know.
You like going to you're like, I live in the Northeast, and I want to go somewhere warm if I'm going to travel.
Well, you know what? It's funny because like I've had like the Arizona College Republican people say like, hey, would you want to come down? Or even like someone in Texas. Like I've said this before, but it's pretty easy to get me to like come places if you're at a university, or whatever. I'll come. I'll visit. I like to visit.
Sorry.
To be a member of the club, though, you need to be.
Oh, no, here's-
You are okay with Republicans and independents,
Yeah.
libertarians, but no Democrats. I hope you don't let
No,
Democrats.
well, there's a lot of like former Democrats, people who maybe
They can be
identified-
former.
Yeah.
who identified like you at one time with the Democratic Party, but feel like they aren't catering to your needs anymore.
Yeah.
And they have kind of seen maybe the light or been red-pilled since then.
Or if they feel like, they have an interest in looking at conservative values and they want to see what's going on, we'll try to lend them a hand, just tell them, what kind of principles we support, what the party's for, and try to guide them more in a, right wing, come to the right and kind of leave the left and, kind of help them with their awakening.
There must be something in the Arizona water that's making rhinos go mad right now. Both members of the Grand Canyon State Senate delegation blasting President Trump using some very inflammatory language, speaking to a nearly empty Senate floor today. Retiring Senator Jeff Flake comparing the commander-in-chief to a murderous totalitarian dictator.
Our own president uses words infamously spoken by Joseph Stalin to describe his enemies. It bears noting that so fraught with malice was the phrase enemy of the people that even Nikita Khrushchev forbade its use. We are not in a fake news era, as Bashar Assad says.
Newly elected Utah Senator Mitt Romney kicked off 2019 with an op-ed in the Washington Post that savaged Donald Trump's character and leadership. Romney's attack and Trump's response this morning on Twitter are the latest salvos in a long-standing personal feud between the two men. It's even possible that Romney is planning to challenge Trump for the Republican nomination in 2020.
So there was a mailer that was sent out that showing the slate endorsements from the GOP, and we noticed that there were a few people on there that were incumbents that were not on that endorsement list. Maria Sims of LD28. Is there any reason why she wasn't included in the endorsements when you had like someone like Rodney Glassman, who was on that list, who maybe could be argued isn't even a Republican?
That's a completely different story. Specifically with the LD28,
Yeah.
When we raised the money for those slate pieces, there's actually a story I was going to tell about the governor and how much time and effort he put into this stuff. He actually met with us and the targeted legislative districts in the state a few weeks before the election. It was just after the primaries, and discussed, because he felt pretty good about his election. He wanted to see what he could do for everybody else's elections. Specifically with the Maria Sims issue, when we raised the money for those particular slate pieces that were mailed on that one, we were told to use we used the endorsements from the governor's side of those candidates.
Because it went to the one Republican that came in fourth place, not the incumbent.
We used the endorsements of the governor on that.
Right, we didn't endorse that.
Is there any reason why?
I don't know if you know the backstory. There's a lot of backstory on
Okay.
that particular issue that I'm not going to get into right
Sure.
now. But it's the chairman wanted to follow the direction of the governor on these races,
But again, it goes back to unity, and you can't. Flake's done the same thing. We can't have it both ways, and that's got to stop.
I feel like we lost that seat almost on purpose.
Myself, I wholeheartedly agree. I wish the two could have put personal things behind them early on, because I think that between the two of them, they were telling enough people and supporters to single shot that it might have.
And as a result of that, we lost a seat. Now they both belong to the Democrats.
Yeah, and LD 28 was always going to be a tough one.
I would like to add to what you're saying, George. It is, if you're like me, ladies and gentlemen, and you were appalled by the performance during this last midterm election, especially in regards to the Arizona Republican Party, I cannot stress enough, that's going to be part of Crew's objectives for 2019. We're going to be encouraging our members to become precinct committeemen. It is so important. It is evident with this midterm election that there's a disconnect within the party in this state, and also on a national level. There is a tremendous disconnect. And if we want to reform the party, if we want to ensure that the conservative movement in America continues to stick around long after we're all gone, we need to be a part of that. Again, I can't stress it enough. If you're like us and see a problem and want to be a part of the solution, think about becoming a precinct committeeman. Think about running for lower office. Think about what we're also going to be doing. We're going to be challenging the establishment, both primarily in this state, and that's why we're wearing these safety vests to mimic our brothers in France.
And at least you're not covering your faces.
We're not covering our faces. But that's what we're all about. There is a tremendous disconnect within the party structure. And that is, in my humble opinion, and I know it's the opinion for the leadership within Crew, as well as RU, the establishment, the strategy that they've played up until now has to change. For the sake of the conservative movement in this country, for the sake of the movement in this state, there needs to be a change. And so please, don't just look to us. Please get involved, become knowledgeable, become educated, become galvanized like we are. Really start being motivated to really see what's going on and to make that crucial difference that is so needed.
The word neoconservatism literally means new conservative, neo being the Greek word for new and conservatism meaning politically on the right. And this was a term that was given to American political activists in the early 1970s, and these were former leftists, in some cases former communists, and also former members of the Democratic Party. And gradually their political views evolved. They moved rightwards, they were increasingly conservative, they left socialism behind, they left the Democratic Party behind, and they were given the name neoconservatives, meaning new conservatives, because they were new to conservatism and new to the Republican Party in the US. It was meant to be an insult, really. It was meant to be a derogatory term, and it was given to them by their former comrades on the left who were basically saying, well, you've moved so far to the right, you're basically now conservatives, you're like new conservatives, neoconservatism. So the neocons actually really embraced this term, as they took it as a kind of a badge of honor, really, and began to refer to themselves as neoconservatives, or neocons for short, and the name really stuck with them. Some of them went on to serve in the Reagan administration, and they mainly had second and third tier positions in Reagan's administration. But this is how they really solidified their influence in the Republican Party. Although ultimately they broke with Reagan, they were quite disappointed with elements of his foreign policy in particular, especially the way that he dealt with the Soviet Union. They felt that he was much too soft with the Soviet Union. The neocons were much more hardline. But then in 1989, the Cold War ended anyway. And the Cold War had really fired a lot of these neocons, and the end of the Cold War really kind of split the neocon movement. It really lost its focus, and there was a new, younger generation that came through. And those neocons were out of office in the 1990s and were great opponents of Bill Clinton. In particular, they thought he was very soft when it came to foreign policy. So this second generation of neocons, they were very interested in the problems of the post-Cold War world. And they really believed that with the demise of the Soviet Union, America was now the single pole of power in the world. A very famous neocon columnist called Charles Krauthammer coined this phrase, the unipolar moment. And he said, that 1989 was America's unipolar moment because it was now the single pole of power in the world. It was the world's only superpower. There was no longer a Soviet Union to compete with the United States. So the neocons believed that American foreign policy should be dedicated to preserving and extending this unipolar moment as far into the future as possible. While they were out of office, the neocons were really kind of positioning themselves for a return to office should the Republican Party win the presidential election in 2000. And of course, George W. Bush did win that election. When he was looking to appoint people to staff his administration, he turned to many of those neocons who'd been active during the 1990s. People like Paul Wolfowitz, who was the second highest official in the Department of Defense, Douglas Feith, who also had a very important policymaking role in the Department of Defense. The neocons mainly took on second and third tier positions in the Bush administration, but they were influential. They came to office with big ideas about what they wanted to do, what they thought the purpose of American foreign policy should be, this idea of preserving America's position as the unipolar power, the single pole of power in the world. And this is something that George W. Bush was very responsive to, particularly after 9/11.